Right. Hey everyone, we're back again with another episode of D'ART Shtajio's vlog, episode 21. I'm Henry Thurlow.
My name is Arthel Isom.
And we're thinking about topics again. Not sure what we should talk about.
Yeah.
The new 3D Ghost in the Shell came up, and we were like, should we talk about maybe 3D? Our feelings on 3D? Is that what we're kind of settling on?
Like what do we think about 3D and anime, and just kind of 3D in the animation industry?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of feel a certain way about it particularly because when I was in college at the time, it was like I'm gonna get the year wrong, so for all of our fact checkers, feel free to put the year in the comments. But so when Disney closed their 2D studios, what was that? That was like in 2004, 2003, maybe something like that.
Yeah, 3-4.
Yeah, like we're in they closed their 2D studios because they were like, oh, 3D is the way. We don't need 2D anymore. The end of 2D, right? And then now we just have 3D movies, and that's really, I don't know. So I feel a kind of way about 3D because I felt that there's room for both. Like 3D, the medium of 3D is a totally different medium, and then 2D animation is another medium, and just like live action and where you got movies and playhouses, like your stage plays, right? They're just different things. It doesn't mean that just because there's one that the other can exist. And so now with this new, I do see this shift of a lot of animes switching to 3D. We got Beastars and things like that, and quite a few 3D anime coming out, and so it's interesting because it's like, well, okay, so should Japan and these other places just kind of follow after, the West's ideology of just like let's just close all of our 2D studios and just go straight 3D, right? And now that's not what's being said out here. Like I'm just kind of being hyperbolic with that, but I think that, okay. So what do you guys think about that? So please definitely comment, and then obviously we're gonna give you our comments about it. I don't know. So what do you think?
What do I think about 3D animation? I feel like it's a different art form altogether. Like I don't innately dislike or like any art form, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like marble sculpture. Do you like or dislike? Well, I don't know. Show me the marble sculpture. And then similarly, when it comes to animation, I'm not going to critique Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust alongside of a claymation because it's just something different. There's no point in even critiquing them, to be honest, together. Mm-hmm. What do you think of this claymation? There'll be a claymation I think is great, and then there'll be one I think is really cheap and not good. So 3D animation I think is the same. Obviously, when a studio goes all out, Pixar, I like The Incredibles. I know you're a fan of The Incredibles also. It can be done good. I think 3D took a while to convince me. Early on, I probably felt the same as you, like, oh, screw 3D, because I just, it's taken over 2D, which I really love, and early on, I wasn't convinced by it so much. Obviously, Toy Story was just a generally good movie, but, with the very rare exception, I was just generally not liking 3D, right? Use it for video games, don't make movies with it, right? It's my kind of attitude. But I get, obviously, it's long since crossed that barrier into 3D can be great, but for me, like I'm not a diehard claymation fan. If someone is, power to them. It is a cool art form, but it's just not what I go home and watch every day. I like 2D animation. So similarly, I just feel like
go home and watch it every day. When Gumby was on TV, I went home every day and watched Gumby. I think that we don't go home and watch it every day just because there's not a lot of it.
There isn't a lot of it. Fair enough. I guess what's being made, well, although I was trying to be nicer, because if you take the critique in that direction, then you are saying there's way more variation, way more great stuff in the 2D arena, right? And not the claymation arena, right?
So I wouldn't really say that there's great variations. Like, I think that they're just... I kind of agree with you. I think that they're just different mediums, and I think that there should be space for both. It's weird, because the issue that I have is when the industry, because I think the reason why there's not a lot of stop motion animation, and is because of the industry. Like there's a lot of stop motion artists. Like in Europe, I guess there's two big companies, right? And I'm sorry, I can't remember the names right now. But
Where's Leica at? Is that
okay,
that's
so
the
Leica,
States,
right?
or is that I don't know where
I
that's
think
located.
Leica's in Europe, right?
I
Is
thought
the
that
one?
was.
But they did that
I'm not exactly sure of the
Oh,
location.
maybe that's
of
in
it.
LA.
Leica's Stephen DeKnight or something like that. It's this. Or, I might be wrong, but it's the son of the guy that owns Nike.
Oh, really?
But
Okay.
do you know where it's located?
I
Is
think
it?
it's an American.
I
Okay,
thought it
'cause
was
this is something
American. I
Nike
thought
did, that's
Leica
in
was
LA,
American.
actually, right? So Steve
But then
Knight
the
was his
Wallace
son.
and Gromit guys,
Yeah.
that's definitely Europe.
Yeah. Okay, so there's that, and so I think that the industry, like they're just like, oh wait, no, this right now is making money, so we're not gonna put money in this side or whatever, or we're not gonna invest in this because it takes too long to make or something. And I think that's sad. I think that
Like it's in Oregon.
okay, like it's in Oregon, and so I think that shouldn't be the deciding factor. And
It's interesting as we talk about it. It is true. So why do I like anime and why do I like 2D animation? It's because I've seen a whole lot of them that I love. That's not to say all 2D animation or all anime is great. There's tons that are terrible, right?
Yeah.
But I've seen so many that I like so much and was so emotionally connected with or excited by or whatever that you can just outright say I'm a fan, right? If that was the case for because I do like what Leica makes, obviously, and so if there was just more of the stuff, right? If we're going back to 3D specifically, one thing that I just thought about now. Not too many 3D films have I connected with on an emotional level the way that I've connected on many 2D films, right? I know Pixar. A lot of people say they cry during Pixar movies. I'm just not the family-friendly movie type, really. I like The Incredibles, and I can list a bunch of Pixar movies I think are great, but Pixar movies probably don't hit me the same way that they hit some people. I was thinking, has there been any 3D films that hit me like animes hit me though? And because Japan has come out with a bunch of 3D films too. I love Gantz, for example. I actually haven't seen the 3D one, so it's just terrible. But I shouldn't critique.
I saw the 3D Gantz.
What'd you think of it?
I thought it was cool because that was my first time watching Gantz.
So I really do want to see that. I still haven't. That's ridiculous. I should have seen that by now. But one actually did jump out in my head. I randomly, quality-wise, it's not even that great because it's okay. I think it's a Toei film, and it was based on a super old 1960s manga. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, it was when I was back teaching English, and I just randomly went to the movie theater here in Japan one weekend, and I was like, "What's playing?" And then this 3D film was playing, and I watched it. It's called Ashura.
Oh, Ashura, yeah.
Have you seen that?
I've seen that, yeah.
The 3D one?
Oh, I know it's 3D.
No, I'm sure a lot of things are called Ashura. I know there's a game also called Ashura. There was a movie called Ashura based on a 2-volume 1968 manga or something like that, right? And I guess going into it without being prepped for what it was also a good thing. That's kind of, I feel, the best way to watch movies. But so I'm expecting to see just a very average 3D anime kind of film, right? And then leave and just be like, I like 2D better. That one film is for me, the only time a 3D movie hit me that hard.
Yeah.
It
you
was.
didn't cry during Avatar. Stop lying. When those trees fell, man, I was
Avatar with the blue people.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, as a baby. Oh no, the blue people. It was. I couldn't handle it. I blocked that out of my mind. It was so traumatizing. That's why I didn't remember. But no, this movie was very Grave of the Fireflies-esque.
Yeah.
It was very. It was I was really surprised watching it because I wasn't expecting anything as I'm watching it, and quality-wise, it can't compare to Pixar or anything like that. It's very bare bones. But what was playing out was a really well-directed film about starvation in ancient feudal kind of Japan. They couldn't get food, and it was really upsetting. The whole movie was really but so and that stands out to me even to this day, this one random movie, right? So I think if there were more 3D films like that, then maybe I would outright call myself a 3D fan too, because I would just be emotionally connected to so many of them. I don't feel like there's any genre, maybe arguably live action, but for me, there's no genre or medium more so than 2D animation that has connected with me.
Well, I think that's interesting because that's more content, and so I think that would just depend on the content, right? So who like how much goes into their story and things and character development, and perhaps just some of the I'm sure there's a lot of 3D. I mean, Pixar stuff. Obviously, that's example we keep going back to where they do really invest a lot in their story and things.
You know what though? As you're saying this, sorry to cut you off, but just as you're saying it to not lose my train of thought, I think content and what is produced really is important for people's perception of a medium. Because if I was never introduced, for example, to 2D animation done outside of America, and I was only ever aware of America's, I would think probably the Disney films are great, but then other than that, I probably wouldn't take the art form too seriously, right? Because nothing good was ever produced. It was just Hanna-Barbera stuff and, little things like, cutesy cartoons that are on television. It is the content that ends up having a big influence over my opinion of
Oh, no. So I didn't
medium.
mean in that sense. I think content, because so when, and I might get these words mixed up, I always get subjective and objective mixed up, but I think that's subjective, right? Where it's like you can, so because people can view content from different angles, and this person's gonna like it, this person's gonna not like it. So I was actually coming from a different angle as opposed, like, so let's kind of put content to the side and just kind of like think about 3D animation, just the industry of it, and then what does it do to 2D animation. And so because when 2D studios and things close just because 3D, well, initially they said, okay, it's cheaper or it's easier to do 3D animation, right? And then now obviously it costs way more money just to make 3D animation, right? Or it costs about the same, more money, whatever. And so that panned out to not really be true. But they destroyed a whole industry just because of it. And I feel like now the same thing could happen in Japan too, where it's like everyone's making this shift to 3D animation for what purpose? Like why? Just because they think that, okay, is that the end thing to do right now? Oh, is it easier to make money? Do we get paid more money if we do 3D animation? And I think that shouldn't be the case. Like, just put more money, invest more money into 3D animation. And then, so there's that. But another thing, just so I don't lose train of thought, another thing that also frustrates me about 3D is that, because content-wise it's fine. Like, it looks nice, whatever, who cares? But what the problem that I do have with 3D is that I feel the craft of being an artist is disappearing, is dropping. Because and then so now obviously there might be a lot of 3D artists who are gonna take me to task and be angry because I said, hey, you're not doing anything. Like, which is fine. Like, I'd love to hear your opinions and everyone, please comment in the section like how 3D is art. But I feel that like and
how 3D, it's like just a backhand. It's just like, and I respect your opinion. Just okay. Now as we continue,
no, I don't mean to come off like facetious or anything. But what I mean is that the computer is doing half the work, right? And so you have a lot of 3D artists who can't draw anymore, and I feel that's sad. Like, you can't do anything anymore. And then, but like maybe that's the old man's way of thinking about it, right? Like, hey, you can't build a house. Let's just have a machine build a house. Yeah, I get it. Whatever, it's faster. You can build more houses with tractors and things. But I feel that's a little bit different because you're still building the same house. Whereas like with art and content, it actually is different. Like, sure, you're telling the same stories, but now, like, a craft really is just disappearing, right?
It's a super different craft. For me, it's... I mean, it's interesting because I know on 99.9% of conversations, you are of the opinion, I don't care about feelings. I care about the reality and then assessing the reality, right? That's right? But so if you're looking at it like that way, in that sense, no matter how you and I feel, the reality is 3D is here to stay. It has damaged the 2D industry, and it will continue to. Done. Deal with it. What are you going to do about it now? But now, if we are talking about feelings, I of course do agree with you. A world where there was no 3D, or 3D was just, video games essentially, and then maybe one or two unique studios like Pixar. That's way better for us because the 2D animation industry lives on. Artists stay studying the skills that are necessary for our industry as opposed to a 3D industry, meaning there are more skilled people to contribute to these products that we're making. So I mean, if you're looking at it just from that perspective, I kind of don't like 3D,
I'd say,
but it is what it is.
I don't dislike 3D, but I would say, and let's put feelings aside, because it's not really about feelings, but more like just the reality, right? Like just like if we just think about the reality of things, like it truly is just a craft that's just disappearing. Kind of like how they say languages disappear or whatever. Like you have like it's interesting.
If Japan largely abandoned 2D animation, then it would largely disappear.
Then that would be the end of
because
2D animation.
Japan is the only country that's still massively
keeping
producing
it alive, right? Then you
yeah.
got France after that, but it's still just like
And of course,
small
and
industry.
Netflix is funding Western stuff now too. But and obviously there are 2D production companies even in the States. But
all right, we're gonna kind of end this here. Although I have a lot more to say about it, but I do have to take. Obviously, I'm running a company. I have to take this call. Sorry, everyone.
Go take the call.
Okay.
All right, guys.
So
I sit here alone. Steven.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, you are the 3D guy. You should comment on it. Although the reason my mind didn't immediately go there is because you don't really animate characters for us. It's more building worlds and stuff. Well, largely that's what
I think that the role of 3D in this company, because it's primarily a 2D company, 3D is to service the 2D. So the final product is not 3D. So it's definitely an education for me, and ironically enough, I sort of fell into the 3D because I started out in fine arts and working in 2D animation as well. Like I know how to draw a picture, I know how to storyboard stuff, I know how to add effects and all these things like that. And again, this is a whole other topic, which would be interesting, like artists versus commercial artists, that type of thing. Independent artists versus a commercial artist. But to get to the point about 3D and stuff like that, I guess there's two variables to consider. There's the economics, right, and the market, and of course like the market demands, ... And these days it seems like the market demands 3D as the primary medium in which to get entertainment. Even in live action, it's like there's a scene where like the actor in real life is 50-something years old, but in the past they use digital face capturing to make the actor look 20 years younger. So 3D is even implemented in live action medium.
Specifically, here's a question for us. Specifically, how do we feel about 3D, like in anime or anime that or 3D that tries to be anime? So, for example, if there's a 2D anime series and then suddenly the robot and only the robot is 3D, how do we feel about it? And then also, how do we feel about like the new Ghost in the Shell or just outright 100% 3D animes? Yeah. What is your opinion on those two things?
Well, it's interesting. So I'm a fan of mixed media in general. So I like seeing variety in my entertainment. So I like seeing 2D mixed with 3D. The question is, does it look good together? Right?
Yes, that is exactly what my answer would be.
So currently we're working on a scene on a project, which we're working on now, where Beatrix behind us is working on a 3D object that will be painted in this beautiful scene. And so even though the object is 3D, the scene is painted, right? So the goal is to make sure that object belongs in that scene. And there's a lot of big productions I've seen here, done by Studio Bones or even Ghibli sometimes, where it's beautiful, Genga, like hand-drawn animation, but then like the blimp is like 3D, and it's just like womp womp. Even though it's modeled nicely and stuff like that, you could tell it sticks out.
I think 3D is totally fine so long as you meld it totally well. Yeah. So I'll give you an example of something I love.
It's like seeing that for like a couple frames, you see like the stunt man.
Yeah. I feel like that it is just that jarring. Imagine or you see like the mic or something come in, right? Yeah. It's like, oh my god, look at this amateurish ridiculousness. If it was a live action movie and then all of a sudden there's a mic and then it's gone, you'd be like, come on guys, right? Yeah. I feel like, so that's how I feel when I see, to be honest, should I name names? I shouldn't probably name names, but I'm going to because I got balls. All right, ready? Even though I work with Toei and I love Toei, Dragon Ball, the Broly movie, I was watching that, and all of a sudden the characters are 3D for a bunch of sequences, and I'm like, I don't like this.
Yeah, it's a digital
I
stunt.
don't like when it's suddenly 3D. I also don't like when I mentioned robots are 3D.
Yeah.
The Attack on Titan, I love the Attack on Titan series. I worked on the Attack on Titan series, right? Attack on Titan is awesome, one of the best series of the whole decade, etc., etc. Can't say enough good things about it. During season 1, the big giant Kyojin was all 2D. It was all drawn, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. All of the sequences that giant one appears in are super famous now. They're on posters and right everywhere. Like everyone knows that character. Even people that probably aren't even in anime know that character because that's how iconic the cool 2D sequences became. And then in later seasons, whenever that specific one shows up, it's 3D. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? If you could mesh it perfectly so that I couldn't tell, like let's say there was a close-up as the characters are swooshing around them, maybe there's a few sequences where actually the big arm area that comes up real quick across the screen was 3D, but you didn't catch that, did you, Henry? Or maybe I caught it because I'm in the industry, but no one else caught it. Okay, fair enough, you used 3D well. But if I look at it and I'm just like, wow, look at suddenly the 3D character in the middle of my 2D sequence, I can't stand it. On the flip side, though, to give you some good examples of when 3D was used to show that I'm not just bashing on it, go far back, but Tech on Concrete and the Studio 4C stuff around that time. The whole, and now it was 2D textures, but obviously they built it in this 3D world, and then the characters are running down the streets. Like there's no, obviously the streets are somehow built 3D, right, to make this movement. But it looks awesome. It looks like the 2D characters mesh with that background perfectly, and so awesome. I'm glad you used 3D. You did it in a way that completely convinced me that the world existed, right?
Yeah, and that was the art direction from the start. And the comment you made about like how like one show like the character's 2D and then the other one is 3D and stuff like that. I'm always curious about that. Like I don't have the answer or inside scoop, but if I were to hazard a guess, it comes down to like production. Maybe like the Sakuga or the head animator they had has already moved on to another project, and they're like, oh shoot, well this is due like in 2 days. So maybe in that case, 3D was just a more like simpler answer.
Oh, from a production standpoint, being on the side of production where all of a sudden, day before something needs to be handed in, someone didn't do a job correctly or whatever, and oh no, we don't have a sequence. What are we going to do? I understand that 3D can be utilized there and save the day and be put in for production. So in terms of can 3D more simplistically, or can it save the day by very quickly fixing some problems?
Or at least patch the hole to make it a gas station.
Can it patch up major problems if there are major problems in the production? Absolutely, and yes, you would be stupid not to utilize it. And so maybe that's what happened with Attack on Titan for all I know, right? And obviously I would prefer the 3D thing there than them just not handing the project in, or them handing it in with like a rough animation and like a note saying, I'm sorry, we did not complete this sequence. But if you're critiquing, if it looks good, if you're critiquing if I think it creates emotional impact, if it was a good decision, no, I want you to do it all in 2D, is my opinion.
Yeah, and that's just your taste, your Pepsi, I'm Coke, or something like that. But also, I think the other one was, the second part of that question is like how you feel about like a 2D that made it look like anime. And I think just look at Pixar, right? Even though that's their final product is 3D, it looks like it's hand-drawn Disney 90s animation for the most part.
Pixar?
So my point is that
high quality.
High quality.
I get it's high quality.
Well, like for example, The Good Dinosaur. See what I did there?
I didn't like that.
See what I did there?
I didn't like that.
That was like their one flop. But my point is that like it doesn't matter what medium it is. I think if you're a good enough artist, you can emulate just about anything. Like, whenever you watch a TV show and it's like, all right, we're going to beat up Magneto, but then you interview the actor and he's Australian. It's like, oh my God, that guy like mastered the American, accent. So I think if you're working in like, say, 3D or even claymation, let's take it to even, I haven't seen example, maybe the closest one I've seen is like maybe Kubo, but I think they went more towards like a wood block style, thing. But I'm saying is like whatever the medium is, I think you can make it look like what you're going. That all comes down to art direction, and budget, of course.
And this video is already running long.
Yep.
So let's call it a day. You know the saying? What's our studio saying?
Shtajio ga daiji.
Shtajio ga daiji. The
my
foundation is important. Shtajio ga daiji.
Yeah.
See you guys next time.
Bye.